to our 2015 AGM. My name is Jeff Morris. I'm the Base Director of Calgary Operations here, and I just wanted to start with a couple of housekeeping items before we turn it loose to the AGM portion of it. For your information, we've got emergency exits in the back left corner of the hangar here. It may get a little bit noisy, and it may get a little bit hustled with crew coming in and out. So they're on a mission right now, so you may see them coming back and forth on this left side. We've tried to give them a little bit of access, so if you see people in blue suits, never running, but walking quickly, just please be mindful of that. If in the case of an emergency, if we have to gather in case of a fire or use the emergency exits, we do have a muster point that's out in front of the building, so you can look for any one of our STARS staff, and we have a muster building out in front at the second light pole. For the use of bathrooms, you probably have to be escorted unless you know the building. So we can escort you through the reception boardroom area to a restroom around there, or upstairs if anyone's doing, I don't know if we're having tours or walking through the building. That said, we also have some mild updates and some renovations going on, so maybe some ladders and tiles around you with some electrical cords. We're just doing some updates, so be mindful of that as well. And that's about it. I'll turn it over to Andrea. Enjoy your day.
Okay. We'll keep him around to get me on and off the podium. What do you think? So welcome everybody to our annual general meeting. Pleasure to have all of you here. So my name is Andrea Robertson. I'm the President and CEO of STARS, and I'd like to thank all of you, of course, for coming to share this time with us today. I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce our board members to you. As I introduce you, would you please stand? Dino DeLuca, Chair of the Society. Dino is acting chair in the absence of Dave Mowat today, and Pat Woozwa, who's our Chair of Foundation. Our directors, Dr. Ann Doig, Randy Garvey, Michael Hoffert, Kent Caulfield, Rod Kennedy, Dr. John Kortbeek, Dan McLean, Greg Melchin, Irene Pfeiffer, Dale Riddell, Evan Sogstad, Ben Voss, Pat Woozwa. Oh, Pat, you've already stood. I won't do that again. Regrets today are Scott Saxberg, Linda Bannister, Sean McBurney, Dave Mowat, and Bob Brennan. We have two nominees to announce today that are going to be joining our STARS Society board, and I would ask you also to stand. Ms. Mona Hale. Mona is the Vice President of Finance for Finning Canada. Mr. Stuart Lee, President and CEO of EPCOR. Thank you. The following current directors will renew their terms for another 3 years. For the Foundation, Dan McLean and Dale Riddell. For the Society, Linda Bannister, Bob Brennan, Dr. Ann Doig, and Dr. John Kortbeek. Dave Mowat will also be renewing his term for another year. The process for STARS annual general meeting is that we move quickly through the AGMs for both Society and Foundation. I will now ask Dino DeLuca and Pat Woozwa to open the respective meetings, commencing with Dino, Interim Board Chair, Shock Trauma Air Rescue Society.
Thank you, Andrea. I would like to welcome you all to the 2005 STARS Society Annual General Meeting. It's great to see STARS team members, volunteers, donors, directors, and board nominees to our annual general meeting. It is a pleasure to have you all join us. I will now call the annual general meeting of the Society to order. The notice of meeting was forwarded to the voting members. Voting members of the Society are entitled to 1 vote each and have received red-colored voting cards. The voting members of the organization are also the directors of the organization. The record date for the meeting is August 19th, 2015. The quorum for the Society Annual General Meeting is 3 voting members. Leanne, do we have quorum? Quorum is declared. The presence of a voting member invalidates any proxy received on behalf of that voting member. No proxies have been received and no limitations have been placed on the voting. The agenda and the 2015 community report were available at registration for those wishing to have a copy at the back table. The 2014-2015 Society Consolidated and Society Foundation combined financial statements were also available at the registration desk and have been posted on the STARS website. And the minutes of the last annual general meeting held on September 25th, 2014 were made available to the voting members. Leanne Lickness is the secretary for the meeting. So I'd like to start with the approval of the agenda. The agenda was also available to you at the registration desk. The voting members received the agenda in advance of the meeting. To the voting members, are there any requests for changes to the agenda? With no changes or objections to the agenda, I would like to call for a motion to accept the agenda. Could you please stand?
I move that the agenda of the meeting be adopted.
May I now have a seconder? All in favor? Against? I declare the motion carried. Now we'll move to the approval of the minutes of the previous AGM. To the voting members, are there any errors or omissions in the minutes? With no request for correction or amendment, I now call for a motion to approve the minutes of the previous annual general meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move that the minutes of the annual general meeting of the Choctaw Air Rescue Society held on September 25th, 2014 be approved as circulated.
I now call for a seconder of this motion.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone against? Motion carried. We'll now move to agenda item number 4, the election of directors. The directors of the Society generally rotate through a 3-year term, with approximately 1/3 of the board rotating or being re-elected as per our bylaws every year. The nominees recommended by the Governance and Nominating Committee were presented to and approved by the Board of Directors on June 25th, 2015 for presentation to the voting members for election at today's AGM. The nominees and their renewal term are Dave Mowat for an additional year, Linda Bannister for 3 years, Bob Brennan for 3 years, Dr. Ann Doig for 3 years, Dr. John Courtbeek for 3 years. The nominees for the STARS Society Board this year include 2 new nominees. The listing is presented on overhead, and as I read each nominee, could you please stand? I didn't even know there was a screen behind me. Mona Hale, welcome, and Stuart Lee. I now call for a motion to cease nominations for the directors of the Society.
Chair, I move that nominations cease.
Thank you. May I have a seconder?
Second that motion.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carried. I now call for a motion to re-elect or elect the director nominees for the terms as listed.
Mr. Chair, I move that the nominees for directors of the Choctaw Air Rescue Society be elected or re-elected as outlined in the terms of office as indicated. Noah Premier, Linda Bannister, Bob Brennan, Dr. Doig, Dr. John Courtbeek, Hale, Stuart Lee.
Thank you. May I have a seconder?
I second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? I declare the motion carried. Welcome to our newly elected and re-elected directors. At this time, on behalf of the Society Board, I would like to thank our auditors, PricewaterhouseCoopers, for their exemplary work they have carried out during the past year. I will now adjourn the Society AGM for a short period to ask Pat Uzwa, Chair of the STARS Foundation, to open the annual general meeting for the Foundation. Did I miss the page? Oh, I'll go back up. Oh, the meeting's not adjourned. I apologize. Yeah, I didn't second. I missed an entire half page. The auditor acting for the boards of the Society and the Foundation in 2014-15 fiscal year has been the firm of PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP, Chartered Accountants. The Audit and Finance Committee has recommended to the Board of Directors that PricewaterhouseCoopers be reappointed for the 2015-16 fiscal year. And this recommendation was accepted by the Board on June 25th, 2015. I would like to call for a motion to appoint PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP Chartered Accountants as auditors for the 2015-2016 fiscal year at a remuneration to be set by the Board of Directors of the Society. I will now call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the members of the Shock Crown Ontario Rescue Society appoint PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP Chartered Accountants as the auditors for the 2015-2016 fiscal year at a remuneration to be fixed by the Board of Directors of the Shock Crown Ontario Rescue Society.
Thank you. May I have a seconder?
I second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? I declare the motion carried. Would you like me to repeat what I said already? Thank you, PricewaterhouseCoopers. I will now adjourn the Society AGM for a short period to ask Pat Uzoa, Chair of the Stars Foundation, to open the AGM for the Foundation. Thank you.
It's a big step. Thank you, Dino. Welcome, everyone, to our annual general meeting. This is an important day for all of us. We get to look at what's been accomplished in the past year, and we get to look forward to the future as well. I want to call the annual general meeting of the Stars Foundation to order. And similar to the Society, notice of the meeting was forwarded to the voting members. Voting members of the Foundation are entitled to 1 vote each and have received blue-colored voting cards. The voting members of the organization are also the directors of the organization. The record date for voting was set at August 19, 2015. The quorum for the Foundation annual general meeting is 3 voting members. Leanne, do we have quorum? Quorum is declared. The presence of a voting member invalidates any proxy received on behalf of that voting member. No proxies have been received and no limitations have been placed on the voting. The agenda and the 2015 community report were available at registration for those who would like a copy. The 2014-2015 Society Consolidated and Society Foundation Combined Financial Statements were also available at the registration desk and have been posted on the STARS website. And the minutes of the last annual general meeting held on September 25th, 2014 were made available to all the voting members. Leanne Lickness is our secretary for the meeting. The agenda was available to you at reception, and the voting members received the agenda in advance of the meeting. To the voting members, are there any requests for changes to the agenda? With no changes or objections to the agenda, I would now like to call for a motion to accept the agenda.
I move that the agenda of the meeting be adopted.
Thank you. I now call for a seconder to this motion.
I second that motion.
All in favor? Against? Motion carried. As with the Society, the minutes of the Foundation AGM held on September 25th, 2014 were circulated with the meeting package to the voting members. To the voting members, are there any errors or omissions to the minutes? With no request for correction or amendment, I now call for a motion to approve the minutes of the previous annual general meeting. Thank you, Rod. I now call for a seconder to this motion.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion? All in favor? Against? Motion carried. We will now move on to the election of directors. Please take a look at the overhead. The members of the Board of Directors of the Foundation also generally rotate through a 3-year term, with approximately 1/3 of the board rotating or being re-elected every year. The nominees recommended by the Governance and Nominating Committee were presented to and approved by the directors on June 25th, 2015 for presentation to the voting members for elections at this general annual meeting. The nominees for the Stars Foundation Board this year include 2 current directors who are renewing their term. They are listed on the overhead presented behind me. I would ask them please to stand. Dan McLean for a term of 3 years, and Dale Riddell for a term of 3 years. Thank you, and I invite you to take your seats. I now call for a motion to cease nomination for the directors of the foundation. I now call for a seconder to this motion to cease nominations.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Ben. All in favor? Against? Motion carried. I now call for a motion to re-elect for the terms listed. Call for a motion to re-elect the director nominees for the terms listed.
I move that the nominees for the directors of the Shock Trauma Care Rescue Service Foundation be elected or re-elected as outlined in the terms of office as indicated. Dale Riddell, 3 years. Dan McLean, 3 years.
Thank you, Randy. I call for a seconder to the motion.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Michael. All in favor? Against? Motion carried. Welcome to our newly re-elected directors. The audit engaged by the Society and Foundation boards for the 2014-15 audit has been the firm of PricewaterhouseCoopers. The Audit and Finance Committee recommended to the Board of Directors of the Foundation that PricewaterhouseCoopers be reappointed for the 2015-16 fiscal year, and this recommendation was accepted by the Board on June 25, 2015. I now call for a motion to appoint PricewaterhouseCoopers as auditors for the 2015-16 fiscal year, a remuneration to be set by the Board of Directors of the Foundation.
Chairman, I would move that members of the Shock Trauma Care Rescue Service Foundation appoint PricewaterhouseCoopers, Chartered Accountants, as auditors for the year 2015-2016 fiscal year, and remuneration to be fixed by the Board of Directors of the Shock Trauma Care Rescue Service Foundation.
Thank you, Dale. And now call for a seconder.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion? All in favor? Against? Motion carried. I would also like to thank our auditors, PricewaterhouseCoopers, for the work they have carried out over the past year. And I want to ask Dino to reopen the Society meeting in order that we can proceed with the joint information session for both of our organization. This information session will include the presentation of the 2015-16 Auditor's Report and the combined financial statements of the Society and the Foundation and the report of the Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Pat. I will now reconvene the Society meeting. The combined financial statements are included in the community report you have received at registration. The financial statements and auditor's report were reviewed with the auditors by the Audit and Finance Committee on June 16, 2015, and were approved by the Board of Directors of the Society and the Foundation on June 25, 2015. We are pleased to report that STARS has again been given an unqualified, clear report by our auditors, PricewaterhouseCoopers. This report is included with the financial statements. We have both Samantha Fernandez and Jacques Rader, managers with PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP, available if anyone has questions about the auditor's report. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we will move on to the financial report. I would now ask that Jeff Quick, STARS Executive Vice President, Foundation, and Chief Financial Officer present the 2014-15 financial report.
Thank you, Dino. So, for the fiscal period ending March 31st, 2015, I'm pleased to report that we have a strong organizational cash and working capital position. Our fundraising and operating revenues support our overall operating expenditures and capital expenditures. And during the year, we reduced bank indebtedness by $2.4 million. And we increased our endowment funds as well. So the year was a very good year. Now looking forward. The current economic environment is impacting fundraising revenues. However, we are offsetting this by managing discretionary expenses and deferral of certain capital expenditures. Our 2015 Alberta and Saskatchewan lotteries both sold out this year. And we added a 50-50 in Alberta this year, which also sold out and had an increased revenue for the organization. And we continue to have strong support from our governments both financial support with contractual commitments to fund operations in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Are there any questions? No questions?
Thank you, Jeff. I would like to thank Jeff and his team, as well as Randy Garvey, the chair of our Audit and Finance Committee, and the committee members for their expertise and guidance. I would now like to call for a motion from the voting members of the Society to acknowledge receipt of the combined financial statements and auditor's report for the fiscal year ended March 31, 2015, and to acknowledge receipt of the 2014-15 financial report presented by management.
I move that the members of the Shaw Trauma Air Rescue Society acknowledge the receipt of the 2014-2015 auditor's report on the audited combined financial statements as of March 31, 2015, and that the members acknowledge the receipt of the 2014-2015 annual financial report presented by management.
Thank you, Rod. May I have a seconder? Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposition? Motion carried. I'll now pass the meeting over to Pat Uswa, Foundation Chair.
I would like to call a motion from the voting members of the Foundation to acknowledge receipt of the combined financial statements and the auditor's report for the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2015, and acknowledge receipt of the 2014-15 financial report presented by management.
I move that the members of the Shock Trauma Air Rescue Service Foundation acknowledge receipt of the 2014-2015 auditor's report and audited combined financial statements as of March 31st, 2015, and that the members acknowledge receipt of the 2014-2015 annual financial report presented by management.
Thank you, Randy. I now call for a seconder to this motion. Thank you, Ben. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carried. And now I'd like to ask Andrea Robertson, our President and CEO, to come forward and present her annual report.
Okay, that was exciting. Wasn't that exciting? Did everyone have a good time? Yeah, it's, you know, it's just those motions. They're just motions, aren't they? It's been another awesome year here. Incredible year, in fact. And we're very proud of our 6 bases covering 3 provinces, part of British Columbia, and picking up patients each and every day. Our current operational helicopter is out on a mission. That's the 3rd mission we've flown today. Gives you some context of what we're actually out there doing. On average, STARS flies 8 missions a day across our area that we provide service. This is also coincides this AGM with our 30th year anniversary, and to give you even larger context, that means that we've actually flown over 30,000 missions since the inception of STARS. Thrilled today that our founder, Dr. Greg Powell, and his wife, Linda Powell, are here to be part of the official AGM and part of our celebration this afternoon. To give you some idea on numbers of what we've been up to, I think that everyone thinks STARS is really just about that helicopter taking off and getting to the next patient, and the context is much larger than that. On average, our emergency link center takes about 70 emergency calls that are coordinated every day. So the story I often tell is, if on a long weekend we flew 50 missions, our physicians that are on call 24/7 at all of our bases would be coordinating up to 300 more calls. So that means they're talking to other healthcare providers, saying, you know, how are you doing? Can I make some treatment suggestions? Maybe you could bring the patient in through another route, whether that's by ground or by fixed wing. So there's lots more that goes on in STARS behind the scenes, and I think it's important that we talk about it. We do emergency coverage through our industry services team. And at any given time, we are there for 65,000 different industry sites in case emergency assistance is required. Our mobile education unit, which you may have seen outside, that program visited 88 communities this year and trained over 1,500 medical professionals. It's pretty substantive. So lots and lots of numbers, but what am I actually getting at? And I was thinking about how do you reflect what STARS is up to year over year? And you're going to hear in part of our 30th year celebration in a few minutes from one of our VIPs, a very important patient. But when I was thinking about what's been going on in the last year, I think that a lot of people, and I hear it every day when I'm walking around, they see the red helicopter and they think, uh-oh, someone's in trouble. But I had the fortune to interview a pilot a little while ago who said that, he'd lived in our community for a long time. And that actually was his experience. He'd see the helicopter flying overhead, and those were actually his thoughts. He said, until the day I was it was the interview week for him at STARS, when he was standing at the bedside of his brother at the Foothills Hospital, who had just been lifted in by STARS. And as he's standing beside his brother, who not only was going to survive but do well, he heard the sound of us landing again on the helipad and thought, I will never, ever again think, uh-oh. From here on in, I'm going to think, oh, hope. My brother survived, and every time now I hear that helicopter going, my emotion or my thoughts are going to be, there is hope for another human being. And I think that pretty much encapsulates what we're up to day in and day out around here. We've had unbelievable strong leadership from our volunteer board of directors. As you just found out through all the motions, there's a few of them. But without these volunteers, the heads of corporations, physicians, leaders in great deep knowledge in aviation and other aspects of our business, we wouldn't be as strong as we are today. So on behalf of all of the people here and STARS management team, I'd like to say a very, very big thank you to our board of directors. Finally, I'd like to close by echoing words written on the cover of this year's community report. It takes a community to save a life. We talk often about the chain of survival, but if we didn't have people doing bake sales to raise money for STARS, if we didn't have emergency medical services, if we didn't have firefighters, RCMP, police, hospitals, trauma teams to deliver our patients to, you wouldn't need STARS. This is about our whole community coming together. This weekend we had the unbelievable, fortunate opportunity under Jeff's leadership to have an open house in collaboration with YYC, Open Doors of Calgary, and we had 1,300 people through this base to find out more about what we do. And people were asking me, why would you open your doors to the community at this time? And it's pretty simple. This organization is owned by the communities within Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and part of British Columbia. This organization is the community's service. So on that note, I'd like to thank all of you for coming today and for continuing to support STARS. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea. We're now about to close the 2015 AGM. The past year at STARS has been one of excitement, energy, and evolution as we move forward into a new era of commitment to patient care across Western Canada. To all of our supporters and partners, a sincere and profound thank you for the teamwork and collaboration involved in making this possible. Thank you all. There being no additional business, I would now like to call for a motion to terminate the annual general meeting of the Society. A seconder. Thank you. All in favor? I declare the annual general meeting of the Society closed. Now over to Pat to conclude the foundation meeting.
Thank you, Dino. As there is no additional business added to the agenda, we will move to close the Foundation AGM. I would now like to call for a motion to terminate the annual general meeting of the foundation. Do I have a seconder? I declare the annual general meeting of the foundation closed. Thank you all. And now back over to Andrea, who's going to come up and tell us about the next part of our program.
Okay, that was very exciting, but now let's get that party started, shall we? So we need about 10 minutes, and then we're going to have a little presentation around our 30th anniversary, and I please ask you to stay and visit with everybody. There's refreshments. Please help yourself and mingle and get to know each other. Enjoy.